yesterday, so their question is more macro level. Yeah. Anyway,
Okay.
so yeah. So should we start?
Yeah, and first, what I'd like to do, if you could pronounce your name for me so that we get it correct.
Yeah. So my name, you can just call me Zhigang Feng.
Okay. And let's see, you're currently in Omaha at the University of Nebraska, Omaha, correct?
Right.
Okay, gotcha. And I've got your title there too, so we're good with that.
Right.
So the first question is, obviously the stimulus package is making a lot of headlines right now. So it's called a stimulus package. So is that a guarantee? And is it fair to really call it a stimulus package right now?
So that's a good question. So to be honest, I don't think it is fair to call this a stimulus. What happening right now? So right now, so the economy is definitely in the contraction. So just give you a few numbers. In the morning, so they have a job report. So we have over 3 million people claim jobless, meaning so in the last week there are over 3 million people say they lost a job. They need to support from the government. And I want to stress this is a lower bound, right? So I can explain to you why I say this is a lower bound later. But for now, just tell you, so we are in a contraction. But however, this contraction is different from, say, for example, 2008, right? So what caused this contraction? Mainly because this natural disaster, because this virus, right? And then, so so these virus cause people to stay at home. Basically, so over 40% of American was ordered to stay at home. So why they were ordered to stay at home? So we want to flatten the curve. We want to stop the spread of the virus. So that causes a problem. That causes a contraction. So that's the reason. And then, so why I say stimulus may not be a proper title for this plan. So essentially, okay, so now people were ordered or asked to stay at home to facilitate, to flatten the curve, to stop the spread of the virus, right? So they are not voluntarily to stay at home. It was kind of involuntary to help the society. And then, so probably it's better to call this like support plan. Why this support is because there are people who ordered to stay at home, they lost their job or some business because people stay at home. There's no business, and then so they lose their revenue, they lose their income, and then so we need the government to offer some support to them. And why we want to offer support for them for two reasons. Number one, we want to make sure so they have the minimum support, right? And secondly, we want to offer the condition whenever the restrictions are lifted, and then so they are ready to bouncing back. Or sometimes in other news media they say like V shape or U shape, whatever shape of recovery you're going to see. So in that sense, I think so. Stimulus probably is not a perfect title, but that's how people like to call it. But I would call it like probably support.
Right. Now, what would be the difference between this stimulus package, if it passes, and what happened in 2008?
Right. So 2008. So first of all, we need to understand, as I just mentioned earlier, right? So 2008. So is because we have fundamental issue in the economy. So basically, the financial market was shutting down, right? So the cause is different. And then, so there's a lot of similarity between 2008 and the current one. The main difference, I would say, the main difference is in the current one, there are three pillars. I would call that three pillars. Number one, we have support to the hospital, right? So why we need to support the hospital is because, again, this is it's kind of like a natural disaster. First things first, we need to make the public health right. So we need to contain the virus, so then we can do the rest of things. So this is missing in 2008, or this probably is not wasn't there in 2008. And in the second pillar of this of this plan, so we have support for the households. Okay, so why we need support of households? Because people lost job, right? So this same thing happens in 2008, but maybe slightly different, right? In 2008, so in terms of support to the households, they have a 99 plan, if you remember. So basically, it says, okay, so it's the government. When I say so the government says, so we are going to extend the unemployment insurance benefit from less than 1 year to 99 weeks. So why they do that is because that recession is so severe. So people are going to lose their job. They are going to lose the job not for 1 day, not for 1 week, maybe a few days, maybe a few weeks, maybe a few months, or even longer. Then they want to give them a cushion. So make sure, so eventually they find a job, and then make sure so they are not desperate enough So either they decide to give up to looking for a job, so that's bad for the economy, or someone who are highly skilled, they're so desperate they just find whatever job they have, but apparently it's not good for the skill he has, and then so that's going to also a loss to the entire society. So in that sense, the support to the households probably is a little bit bigger in 2008. But in terms of the total scale of the support of this one versus 2008, not necessarily this one is smaller. So this one for individual. So if I lost a job, right? So and then the government says, so you're going to have additional unemployment insurance benefit, but it's only 4 months, not 99 weeks like in 2008, right? Why is that? Is because right now, so most of people believe this recession or this contraction is going to be short-lived. Short-lived in the sense is probably going to be better than 2008, because whenever we have a cure or we have vaccine to this virus, I think everything is going to clear. So in that sense, so for each individual, the support is probably going to smaller. However, so why I said in the overall scale may not necessarily smaller compared to 2008 is because now they have support to everyone. Why there's support to everyone? It's because so everybody's all affected. Because as I mentioned earlier, over 40% of Americans are ordered stay at home, and this number may increase in the coming weeks. Meaning, so we have a significant drop in demand compared to 2008. Because 2008, not everyone loses job, even in the worst day. So we have 10% of people lose job. Right now, you already have 30% of people lost their job, and you have millions of, or maybe 10 millions or 100 million people order stay at home. So they are not going to do the consumption or whatever, right? And then government want to offer everyone a small check. Maybe it's a small check, but then hopefully they can spend a few so that they can keep their local business or keep the small business floating. So that's the idea. That's the difference from 2008 in the household side. Now go to the business side. Okay, so business side. So in 2008 they have a large bailout to particularly financial sector. But this time, so the bailout for the business is not going to be financial sector, or the main player is not going to be financial sector. So the big bailout will be two. Number one, a hotel or airline company, right? And it's number two, so those are related to national security, so Boeing company, right? But that's different. And another minor difference is in the current ones, they are going to spend a lot of money to help small business. Again, so why we need to help small business? For two reasons. Reason number one, in the U.S., almost 50% of labor force or people who work, they work in small business. So that's important. So we keep small business alive. And the second, this time, so the small business are kind of uniformly affected because over 40% of people order stay at home, right? So that's a difference. So basically, I expand like three dimensions in terms of hospital or healthcare sector, in terms of households, in terms of business, right? So this plan is different from the 2008, right? Largely because the nature of these contraction or this recession or the trouble to the economy is different. So and then consequently, the response from the government is going to be different as well. Another thing I want to emphasize, kind of summarize what we just discussed. So this one is in a historical level. So we haven't seen a stimulus plan or support plan before. So this is like 10% of GDP. We've never seen this big. Yeah.
Okay. Now the stimulus package or support package, like you mentioned, in your career or as long as you've been studying economies, this is not a guarantee, correct? I mean, have you ever seen these types of packages fail?
Oh, I see. So you are saying like, okay, when you are saying guarantee, it just means so whether this is going to work or not.
Correct.
I see. Okay, so that's an excellent question. So nobody can say for sure, but there's one thing I can say. So because we do not know whether this is going to work or not, but as an economist, I've been in this profession for more than 15 years. There's one thing we know. So if we do not offer help or offer support to the economy, so we are going to be in an even worse situation. That's one thing we know for sure.
Right.
Because because there's so many people lost their job, they need the check to pay their grocery. They need a check to pay their rent. right? And then from the small business side, there's so many business that need, right? So yeah, so this is not necessary for the check, right? So there are other support. So there are so many business they need money or they need revenue to keep their business afloat.
Right.
Right.
And speaking of, for the average person who's working paycheck to paycheck, some of them may now be without a job. Once this is signed by the president, typically how long would it take for them to see that check in their hands? It's something that they can use.
Right. So two parts. So first, I want to emphasize right now we estimate there are around 37 million people whose job will be vulnerable to this contraction, meaning there are 33 million people who may potentially lose their job. Among these 37 million jobs, there are 35 who works in low-paid, low-hour jobs, like serving a hotel, like serving a food and a drink. Right? So meaning, so this is kind of linked to what you just mentioned. Those people are not necessarily paycheck, but apparently they, so like 1,000 or 1,200 make a difference for them. So this is first thing. This is the first thing I want to emphasize. The second, to answer your question, so based on the document or based on the Treasury Secretary Mnuchin, so he said, so the check, so most of the households are expecting to receive a check in 3 to 4 weeks.
Okay. Yeah. And then once that check is in their hands, it's really not cash in your pocket, because you also have to think about the long-term effects, because this will, if I'm not mistaken, this is something you will have to write on your taxes for next year.
Actually, no. So actually, I went through their document quite carefully. So actually, no. So this is not taxable. But however, so let me explain to you how this works, right? So ideally, so the government policy should be as follows. So whoever has some economic hardship in 2020 because of these drivers, they should receive a check. But this is too complicated. And plus, so your 2020 income is unknown, right? And then, so what they're going to do, so they're going to look at your 2019 tax return. And then, so if your 2019 income is low enough, and then so you'll qualify. So actually, so this low enough is pretty generous. Basically, so this paycheck is going to start to winding down once your income exceeding 75,000. So that's not small amount. So meaning, so majority, I would say probably over 80% of Americans are expecting to receive a check. So the check is going to be maybe smaller, maybe bigger, but average is probably going to be like 1,000 per adult. Right? So this is number one. And then, so this money is not taxable, meaning, so in 2021, during the 2021 tax season, so this check is not considered as your income for 2020. But there's a catch, right? So nothing has been specified yet, but this is I think this is going to happen. What happens is, if at the end, so 2020, your income is sufficiently high, and then so in 2021, the government may say, ask you to return part of the check you received. What that means is, so 2019, I have a family total income of, say, for example, 50,000. And then so we have 2 kids, and then so we are going to qualify 1,200 plus 1,200 plus 500 and plus 500, a total of 34,000, I believe. Right, 3,400, right? And then so suddenly in 2020, I was lucky, I get a promotion, and then so our family income becomes 200,000 in a hypothetical situation. And then so when I file my tax return in 2021, and then the government says, okay, so actually, so 2020, you were in a good shape, so why not just return some of the paycheck you received last year? So this is one catch. But there's another catch. Just think about in the long term, right? So what is the long term? So overall, we have $2 trillion of stimulus or support, whatever you like to call, right? And a part of those money goes through your check, right? But then think about, where does this money coming from eventually? So they coming from essentially, right? So there are different ways to finance these, either through tax, or they through borrowing, or through printing money either way. So somebody must pay for the cost, right? So this cannot fall from heaven, basically, right? Even for now, it's like $1,200. Economists call helicopter money, meaning the money dropped from the sky, but literally somebody need to pay for the money we spend today. Who is going to pay? So most likely the taxpayer. But who are those taxpayers? I would say probably the younger generation. Meaning, so we as a society, for now, so we need to take care of the elderly because they are susceptible to the rivals. At the same time, so when we think about stimulate the economy, or when we think about support the economy, we also need to think about the future generation. So eventually, they must let me see. So they must share the burden of those money we spend today to support the economy, right? But of course, so why we need to do that is because we want to keep the economy afloat, so that they are going to, the next generation, they are going to inherit a better future from us. So this kind of everything is kind of intertwined each other.
Okay. Yeah. And one final question. I don't want to keep up a lot of your time here, but President Trump has said that he wants America to be open for business on April 12th.
Right.
Now, there is a difference between being open for business and recovered from what has happened. How long do you think, if just saying this would happen, if America is open for business on April 12th, how long do you think it would take for us to get fully recovered from what we've been through?
So this is really a tough question. Nobody knows, and particularly I'm the worst person to ask because I'm the economist, right? And so this question, I think first we need to listen to expert. So right now the expert is public health or the doctor. So this is number one. But if you really want to ask me, so what's my opinion? I think so. A couple of things. Number one, we should look at what happens in China, what happens in Italy, what happened in Germany. Or basically, we should look at what happened in those countries who experienced the pain earlier to see what happened. And then so we have projection. This is number one. And the second is, so whenever we say like open the business or open the economy or whatever, right? So we really need to we need to have a contingent plan, meaning so our decision must depend on the actual condition of the economy. Or think about the doctor. Right. So whenever the doctor said, okay, so you're free to go, so must depending on the symptom, must depending on the condition. So we cannot make a projection right now. So we must see the health of the economy, and then so we say, okay, so now we are ready to open, we are ready to go. So that's my 2 cents.
Okay, perfect. Well, listen, I really appreciate your time. And before we go, is there anything that you would like to add?
Let me see. So do we need any questions? Chris can. Right, I think so. You have one more question, right? So what if the crisis continue? How many months does it typically take before we need another stimulus? Oh, right. Yes. So there's one thing I want to share with you. So it's up to you whether you want to mention that or not. So here, so right now, so in most of the discussion for now, so we focus on domestic issue. When I say domestic issue, primarily, so we focus on support the households, right? So I think this is right. And we also talk about support the business. I think that's also right? So that's essentially in the plan, right? And apparently the number one since it's also important, which is to support the healthcare system, right? So we have mentioned that, and we have plenty of attention to that, right? So one thing I want to emphasize is, so right now, so there's something we probably haven't paid enough attention to, which is maybe it's loosely linked to a foreign policy. Meaning, so right now, so whenever we talk about this recovery, right, so we kind of forgot what happens in other countries. So why this is important? This is important in 2 senses. Number one, so we are not living in the island, right? So U.S. American economy is not living in the island. So even we can open our business, even we fully recover from these virus, what happens if our neighbor? What happens in European country? What happens those Asian countries? They still stop suffering. How we can have our supply chain work properly so that we can fully function? This is number one. And then number two, think about what we are doing right now. If we do not act properly. And so maybe this is just a maybe, right? So some American allies, they may lose their confidence in terms of how American government can dealing with the crisis, they may lose their confidence a little bit, and then so they may become less cooperative in the future. So that is going to create some drag on our potential recovery. So that's something I think so people pay less attention. For now, we only focus on domestic economy. We're going to support households, business. That's it, right? So I think so. I want to emphasize we are not in the islands, right? Another thing you also maybe you want to pay attention, which is like look at what the Chinese government is doing, right? So in some sense, so they kind of took advantage of this situation. They are trying to gain some support from some small European country. Some of them actually are American allies, right? So what happens if they took advantage and then so American government lose those support from those allies once we recover? And then what happens if we lose some business opportunity? What happens if we cut off from the potential supply chain later? So that's going to be a damage. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so it's up to you if you want to mention that or not. So this is only my personal opinion, right?
Sure. Yeah. Well, hey, I appreciate your time. It's been very informational, and I'm glad we had the time to chat and talk about this. And again, thank you for taking the time to be with us.
Oh, yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
Sure. And I'll follow up with you on an email and try and get you a clip of what we actually do, okay?
Yeah, so please, if you can, please just send me the text before you post online, because yesterday, so they have a few typos.
Okay. I will do that, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Have a great day.
You too. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.